back by Monday, and we can get him back on the show. I'd like to welcome in my two co-hosts for today's show. We're going to be picking all the games for the Week 11 matchups. First off, Steve Risley. How are you doing, Steve?
Doing great. Good to be with you guys today on Friday. Got a lot of great games to go over. A lot of fun week in the NFL.
But Steve, by the way, the former college basketball national champion.
We got to talk about the big college football game coming up. My beloved undefeated Hoosiers traveled to Columbus to take on the vaunted Buckeyes. 9 o'clock L.A. time. Nothing like laying in bed and watching a major college football game when your wife runs and gets you fresh.
That's our big game from this weekend. And I also would like to welcome in our other co-host today, Sam McGinnis. How are you doing today, Sam?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, good to have both of you here. But before we get into picking the games, I just want to give a brief game between the Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks won 28-21, a very close game. One of the great games to open the week. I mean, it was a great game on Thursday night, but we're getting more good football this weekend. And McGinnis, I have to admit, you picked the Cardinals to win this game. You picked Seattle to win this game. I picked the Cardinals, so you were right. And the game ended on a last-minute sack of Kyler Murray on fourth down, turn the ball over, and give the ball back to Seattle. So congrats on being correct, McGinnis, for once.
For once, yes. I'm 1-0. Watch, it'll start good. It'll be like 4-0, and then it'll just fall off a cliff after that. That's generally how these things go. For me, I'll start.
Absolutely. I'm counting on it, McGinnis. I'm counting on you to screw up these picks so that I can look a little bit better this weekend.
He's begging.
But we'll just get right into it. First game I got up here, Pittsburgh Steelers versus Jacksonville Jaguars. I think this is pretty straightforward. But, Steve, who do you think is going to win this matchup?
Duh. I think Pittsburgh, you're talking about an undefeated team against Jacksonville, 2-7 or something along those lines, right around in there. This is a no-brainer game. I mean, I think the thing about here, and here's the thing, having played at IU and playing at a program of such stature, there's always a bigger bullseye on your back. Right now, obviously the biggest bullseye on any team's back is Pittsburgh. So virtually every team's going to rise the occasion to try and be the one to knock Pittsburgh off the undefeated ranks. And, right now I'd love to see Pittsburgh go undefeated at this point. They have to play the Colts, I think. So maybe if they had one loss, that'd be good. But, Pittsburgh has to take every game seriously because Jacksonville's going to throw everything they got at them. I just don't think Jacksonville has enough to throw at them, disrupt them, and it's a good opportunity to start thinking about cutting back some playing time, not resting, just cutting back some playing time of critical players and trying to keep them healthy now for the big games you got left in the season.
So I'm thinking there's some thought around the NFL community. Maybe this is an upset or a trap game. Yeah, you're taking Pittsburgh. So maybe there's some thought this could be a trap game for Steelers. McGinnis, are you going to take the Jacksonville Jaguars, or are you sticking with the safe pick in Pittsburgh?
So here's the thing. 100% the safe pick, first off, because Jacksonville just doesn't have what it takes to do that. They're not the same Jacksonville Jaguars we saw when they were 10-6 and beat Pittsburgh earlier in the playoffs a few years ago. However, bringing up the topic of what Pittsburgh's schedule has left, don't count them to immediately be undefeated. They have 3 good opponents, I would say, that they've got left to play. And they've got the Ravens, the Bills, and the Colts in the next 6 weeks or 7. So they still have hard opponents, and you got to take, right, like Steve said, every week seriously. But I think as long as they do their jobs, there's really no way the Jacksonville Jaguars can be beating them. If they were to win, it would be the Steelers' fault, not that the Jacksonville Jaguars won. It would be the Steelers' mistakes.
Agreed.
All right. Well, Pittsburgh's going to go undefeated this season and then win the Super Bowl. So I have no worries whatsoever. I'm taking the Steelers to absolutely win this game against Jacksonville. And the Jaguars, they got what? Jake Luton is their quarterback right now, I think. He's like a rookie 5th or 6th round pick. There's no way Jacksonville wins this game. I know Pittsburgh almost lost to Dallas when they had a rookie quarterback in. I don't see that happening again in Jacksonville. I think Pittsburgh's going to win this game and win this game easily. But we have a little bit more of a competitive matchup after that. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Tennessee Titans. This is big NFC South, Steve. What do you think is the outcome of this game?
Well, I tell you what, this is a tough game. You know, I mean, Tennessee's got a vaunted running game right now. And, you know, effectively the Ravens shut the Colts down a couple weeks ago and playing them with their running game. The Colts aren't really known as a strong running team individually, but they kind of made Indianapolis's all-star offensive line kind of ineffective. So I think the game is it's at Baltimore, isn't it? And I know home crowd doesn't count like it did. Still, sleeping in your own bed in this COVID environment and staying at home and doing things counts a little bit, even without having the fans going nuts. So I'm going to favor Baltimore just a little on this, although their quarterback is really not playing as well as he should be. I think I read where he's like 38% on passes thrown over 15 yards or farther. He's not getting the ball downfield a lot. Baltimore's relying a lot heavily on their short passing and their running games. And you know, Tennessee is a playoff contending team. I mean, they're a team that's probably going to be in the playoffs one way or another, either as AFC South champions or as a wild card pick with the extended wild card. So I think it's one of the better games of the week. I go just because they're playing in Baltimore. I'm going to go with the Ravens on this one, but a very close game.
Baltimore Ravens are second in the AFC North at 6-3. The Tennessee Titans are second in the AFC South at 6-3. This has huge playoff implications. The Titans have lost three of their last 4 games. And Baltimore, on the other hand, is coming off a stinging loss to the New England Patriots. So, Sam McGinnis, who are you taking in this matchup?
I'm going to take the Titans, but it could go either way. This is one of the better games that could be throughout the week. But I trust that. I mean, we can look at the playoff win that the Titans had over the Ravens. I think a lot of the tactics used there was incredibly helpful to allow them to win. So if they're able to replicate something of that nature and definitely get in Lamar Jackson's head, especially with the way he's playing right now, if you can even at the beginning of a game just set the tone with the first couple of drives, that might get in his head the rest of the game. So I think the Titans have the ability to do that. And although it could go either way, I'm going to take the Titans on this one.
Yeah,
I'm going to go against Steve as well, McGinnis. We'll make it a team.
Yeah, no, I think the Titans are in a much more desperate win situation than the Ravens are. I mean, the Ravens are pretty well conceded they're going to finish second to the Steelers. That's a given. You know, Tennessee is, like you said, lost 2. They're going against the Colts right now for, you know, division championship and an automatic bid into the playoffs. So, you know, I think Henry's going to have a huge game. He's got to have a huge game for them. But this game, you know, Tannehill has not looked as sharp as we would like to see him look in the last couple of weeks as well. And Ryan, I've watched Ryan. I remember Ryan when he was a rookie on Hard Knocks when he came out, and his stick on him his entire career is inconsistency is all. He's got talent, but when's it going to show up is the question for them. So I just agree with both of you. I'm just going to go with Baltimore for the home field advantage, but this game is probably the closest game being played of any of them.
Yeah, I agree. I could see this game going both ways. I think it's Steve. I think it's more of a must-win game for the Titans because they play Baltimore this week. Then they play the Colts in Week 12, and that's probably going to be the matchup that might decide who wins the AFC South. You want to get the win here and just make your life a little bit easier. For this game, you know what? I'm going to lean towards the Titans too. Baltimore's not going to have Calais Campbell. He's a huge piece of their defensive line. He's a great run stopper. Without him, I think Derrick Henry's going to have a much better day than he ordinarily would. The New England Patriots did not have any trouble running the ball against Baltimore this past week. The running game is going to be there for the Titans. I think it's going to open up the passing game for Ryan Tannehill. And frankly, Tannehill is playing a little better than Lamar Jackson is right now. So I'd rather have Tannehill on my team than Lamar at this point. That gives the Titans just enough of an edge to win this game. It'll be a one-score game probably, but I will still go with the Tennessee Titans.
It's a fair call. It's a fair call.
And that leads us into a less significant matchup. We're going to go the Philadelphia Eagles versus the Cleveland Browns. This is a tale of one team, the Philadelphia Eagles, that just lost to New York Giants last week, and the Cleveland Browns, which is a perennial
I called that game.
Franchise, but they're doing all right this year.
I called the Philadelphia Jets game or Giants game. You and Mike went with Philadelphia.
You got that one right. You did. You got a lot of games right actually last week, Steve. You did really well last week. So let me put it this way. Are you going to get this one right, too? Are you taking Philadelphia's opponent again?
No, I'm going to stick with the Giants. And I go back to the same story I said. I mean, you right now think of if they had Saquon Barkley, think how good the Giants would be right now in that division. I mean, they'd still be cream of the crop. But I think they would be almost running away with that division. But historically, the Giants have always been a second-half season football team. And I followed them. You know, we've had this conversation last week because of Eli Manning being Peyton's brother. I took an affinity toward the Giants. And they always come out. They dig themselves a huge hole in the first half of the season. And then they come out and start playing their way out of it. And if they eke in at 500, which is what they're going to do this year if they make it. You know, it's going to be 7-9 or 8-8 at best. If they win out, I don't know. Can they get to 8-8 if they win out? I think they can, can't they? I think
I'll pull the schedule right now, but the Giants are at a point where they're entering a bye week this week. Actually, they're 3-7 right now. If they were to win out, they would get to 9 wins. Giants can get to 9-7 at best.
Yeah, and I just think Philadelphia is just reeling. I just don't think Wentz is just all over the map. I think he's turning into a disappointment for them. I think they had much higher expectations of Carson Wentz than they're getting out of him right now. And I don't know if it's his own fault because I don't follow the Eagles close enough to know. But day in and day out, did I read a stat where I think he's thrown as many interceptions as he has touchdown passes? I think I read that stat and prepping for this.
That is correct.
He's 50-50 on touchdowns and interceptions. You're not going to get anywhere with a quarterback who's throwing as many picks as he is touchdowns. That's not going to fly in the NFL.
All right, so you're not picking the Eagles in this one. How about you, McGinnis? Who do you think is going to win this game?
So I'm also actually going to go with the Browns, but one of the reasons I'm seeing here is the Browns. Let's take a look at them real quick. Minus a couple of weeks that were a little off, I think the general sense we're getting from the Browns is that they can beat easier teams and they have trouble with the better teams, which is normal, but that's just what the Browns are as a whole at the moment. And the Eagles, you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know what Carson Wentz is going to be. He's probably not going to do very good regardless of the week you're in. And we were talking about Carson Wentz having a head issue the other day, not an injury, but we were talking. I think this was was this the NFL show or was that the Sam and Sam show we were on?
That was the NFL show. We're talking about it.
Yeah, so when you mention that, like, I can see how that can be the case. And again, this goes back to what I was saying about the Ravens, especially if the Browns in the first couple of drives can really upset Carson Wentz or he throws a pick early. This game could very well be canned.
Yeah, I'm going to go with both of you. I think Cleveland's going to beat the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. The only win the Cleveland Browns have against a winning football team this year, Indianapolis Colts, unfortunately for Steve. But, I mean, other than that, they've only beaten losing football teams. The Eagles right now just lost to the Giants. A lot better players. They hit Chubb and Kareem Hunt, probably the best running back duo in football. And Myles Garrett on the defensive side of the ball, I think Cleveland's going to win this game. They're probably going to win it fairly easily. But you never know with the Browns because they tend to lose games they should win, and they always find a way to screw themselves up in the second half of the year. So that's actually a difficult game for me to pick. I will still take the Cleveland Browns, though, just by a thin margin. Another game that I really don't care about, we have to talk about anyways, New England Patriots versus the Houston Texans. And this is a tale of, the Patriots are doing better this year than people expected, considering they lost Tom Brady. But at the same point, look on the other side, Houston Texans are doing much worse after losing DeAndre Hopkins. Neither of his teams are making the playoffs. Steve, who do you like in this one?
I got to say, first off, I screwed up on the last game. I thought it was the Giants playing the Eagles, not the Browns. So I was looking at some different notes. My apologies. What game are we talking about now? I'm rattled.
New England Patriots versus Houston Texans.
New England.
New England?
Yeah, I'm with him on that one. I despite the fact that they are not a playoff team. They're a really good non-playoff team, which is a really odd thing to say about a team, but they can still get things done. They might be one of the better non-playoff teams that there is. It's not like they're Philadelphia, and they've still got good coaching there, so they'll be able to coach around the Texans and win.
The Texans, to me, are a team that they're just kind of an enigma. They're probably the best losing team in the NFL. I know they've gone through some coaching changes and trying to establish a little bit different offensive scenario and defensive schemes and things, but that team's got to be one of the biggest disappointments in the NFL this year.
Yeah, it has to be, especially when you have Deshaun Watson at the quarterback. That's a very good team, but it just shows to tell you how badly Bill O'Brien screwed up when he traded away DeAndre Hopkins to the Arizona Cardinals, a team now it looks like it's going to be in place to make the playoffs. The New England Patriots are favored to win this game by 1.5 points. I would definitely think they're going to cover that. I think the Pats will probably win by even more than that based on what they've done so far. I mean, they just beat Baltimore last week, and they're 4-5. If the Patriots win this game, they're up to 5-5. And if you're at 5-5 with Cam Newton and some of the injuries they've dealt with this year, I think that's a huge win for the Patriots. I will take them in this game as well. Just too well coached, and on the end, I just don't trust the Houston Texans anymore. I think the Pats have this one in the bag. All right, we're going through a rough stretch here. Some games that really don't matter, but speaking of teams that don't matter, Mike's Cincinnati Bengals versus the Washington football team.
Dang, that's
not an exciting matchup whatsoever, but at the same point, we have to talk about it. I think we can see a big game for Joe Burrow here. Who do you think is going to win this one, Steve? Cincinnati versus Washington.
On the strength of Joe Burrow, I would go with the Bengals. Of course, I picked them to upset the Steelers last week. That's kind of what I know about it. So, Joe Burrow, I think, is the real deal. I think he's the best young quarterback in the NFL right now. I think Cincinnati in a few years will be a team that will have to be dealt with much higher than they are right now. I don't see much of anything coming out of Washington that impresses me at all. They got to figure out. And they got Alex Smith. I assume he's going to start again, and he's actually playing fairly well for them. But the whole team in general is just kind of a mess all season long. So I'm going to stick with the Bengals, not just for Mike, but because I think it's the better team this week of the two.
All right, so we got one vote for the Bengals. McGinnis, who are you taking here in this matchup?
Second vote for the Bengals. Also, again, voting Joe Burrow here. He's one of the best young quarterbacks, like he was saying. I think the Bengals are actually decent despite not being having a lot of wins. But yeah, there's Washington is nothing. Just the fact that they're called the Washington football team at this point is just another show of organizational garbage. There are better names you could have picked. But that was just a defiance move, I think. But yeah, I think as a whole, Washington is just an absolute mess. And Joe Burrow is giving the Bengals at least something, and I think he'll be enough to get them the win here.
All right, this is going to be the first time on the show where 3 people have picked the Bengals to win in one given week. I don't think anyone has ever picked the Bengals in a match now against Washington. I agree. Washington's probably the only team that's running worse than Cincinnati in the league right now. I think the Bengals can win just based on their offensive firepower with guys like Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. They won't have Joe Mixon again, but they still have Gio Bernard, and they have Joe Burrow. To me, that's more than enough to beat Washington. I'm not running the Washington football team off there for this one. Just been really well last week. Terry McLaurin is a really good receiver. I think they have chances to win this game. I would still lead Cincinnati just because I can't trust what Washington's put on the field so far. But let's get into a more exciting game. Let's find a new exciting to talk about. How about the Colts versus Steve Risley's team, the Colts versus the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, I was just questioning real quick. Is Washington going to come up with a name for their team? Is Washington going to come up with a name for their team, or are they just going to stick with the Washington football team? Who cares?
You know what? I heard a rumor the other day. They might honestly just stick with what they have right now, which is really surprising to me because there was a whole thing a couple of months ago about how they were getting into legal battles over trying to secure naming rights for certain things. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because supposedly the story was months ago, you were trying to figure out and secure the copyrights for new logos, for a new name or something like that. And now it's like, oh, we might stick with Washington football team. That's ridiculous. You got to pick a name, right? You have to have a name.
Yeah, that's not a name. That's just a cop-out.
Agreed. Okay.
You have to have a name. I don't think you can stick with Washington football team when everyone else has a team and a mascot.
Yeah, they should. Yeah. Okay. Colts Packers.
Yep, Colts Packers. Steve, who are you taking this one?
Well, before I think this game hinges on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders. I think that how Aaron Rodgers plays dictates how this game is scored. If he comes out and is the Aaron Rodgers of old, I don't think the Colts have much to stop him in the defensive secondary. They're good, but they're young, and they're very athletic, but I'm not sure how football savvy they are yet. They make plays if you watch the Colts, and it's actually, for me in LA, it's the third game in a row I'm going to get to watch the entire game because it's the national game of the week, and it's being shown out here in LA. So, but I think that if Rodgers is on target Sunday, I don't think the Colts have a lot, unless they put a lot of defensive pressure on him. And Aaron is as good at scrambling as any quarterback in the NFL and throwing off the run. So, I was reading some of the stats and predictions on this game, and they actually the Colts are favored 2.5 points by 2.5 points, and they're actually saying they think you're going to see a much better game. The bold prediction here is that Rivers will outplay Rodgers on this, and Rivers has been very consistent in the last 3 games and getting things done, but he does not have the arm to throw the deep ball. If you watch the Colts play at all, it's mostly working off out of his backfield or with his receivers on short yardage situations. So defensively, I think Green Bay is pretty good at putting the rush on and getting it going. You've got the number 1 alleged defense against the number 3 offense in the NFL. And in this situation, the way players are protected, I think you favor the offense in that situation. So to me, it hinges on Rodgers. I'm going to pick the Colts because I think Aaron's going to come in and have a game. Historically, the Colts have always done fairly well against the Packers. So I'm going to go with the Colts on this one.
All right, are you taking the Colts as well or the Packers?
This one's really tough for me because every week you got to pick an upset, right? You got to pick at least a few. And although I don't care what LA or Vegas said about this, the Colts are the underdogs in my opinion. But you got to pick at least a few upsets every week. So I think I'll end up having to go with the Colts just based on that fact, because you can't pick the team that you think should win every time. I would say don't be surprised if the Packers win at all, but the Colts at least have a better chance than some of these other teams we've been talking about, like Jacksonville, to make an upset.
So who are you taking then, Packers or Colts?
I'm going to have to take the Colts.
Really? You're taking the Colts? I'm the only one taking the Packers now. I think Aaron Rodgers is still good enough to get this win. If it's him against Philip Rivers, I know Rivers had some inconsistent play early in the year. I'm going to stand by what I know about Aaron Rodgers. He's still a good quarterback. He's still a quality quarterback. I think he is just enough to beat the Colts this week. I think the Colts are an underrated team, don't get me wrong. I just like Aaron Rodgers a little bit more. And the combination of him and Devontae Adams in Green Bay is something to look. So I'm taking the Packers in this matchup. And we go from having a fun matchup to one that's a little less irrelevant. Yeah. But we go to talk about my favorite team now, the Detroit Lions versus the Carolina Panthers. So, Sam McGinnis, your time. Who are you taking in this game?
Panthers. This hurts so much, But hold it. Ooh. Now I have to think. Come back to me. I'm thinking.
McCaffrey's not playing.
McCaffrey's definitely out.
All right, I'll come back to you. Steve, who are you taking between the Panthers and the Detroit Lions?
I'm taking the Lions. Although I think this is a game of talent versus.
I did not expect the Lions.
I think that the Lions are one of the few teams who are far more talented than their coaching staff is. I think if the Lions lose this game, it's because of coaching. Stafford's not injured. He's playing, isn't he? I haven't seen any injury reports on Detroit, so I'm assuming Matt's playing. I know Bridgewater's questionable with a sore knee.
I assume too.
To whether he'll play. McCaffrey's definitely out. I'm just going to go with Detroit in this game. I like them. I've watched them play. So I like Detroit in this one.
Okay, I've got my thought now. If it were if McCaffrey and Bridgewater were playing and Bridgewater was playing healthy, I would be with the Panthers.
Sure.
But with those injuries, I guess I'll have to give it to my Lions. But at the same time, trusting the Lions is not generally a great idea. It's just not. I've learned this over time. So don't be incredibly surprised if the Panthers somehow allow themselves to win through the Lions messing it up.
Yeah, and there's reports from 22 hours ago saying Teddy Bridgewater is unlikely to start versus the Detroit Lions. His backup is P.J. Walker. You might remember him from the XFL. You know what? I don't think the Panthers have much of a shot if Bridgewater doesn't play, but I'm still going to take Carolina. This has to be an upset. And I really doubt Sam McGinnis' favorite team. I like picking against people's favorite teams on this show. So you know what? I'm taking the Carolina Panthers this one, McGinnis. And you know what? I'm going to be right, and I'm going to rub it in your face next week. So moving on from that one.
Okay.
Moving on from that game. Another interesting one. The Falcons versus the Saints. And I have to set this one up a little bit. So the Falcons have most of their starters for this game. The New Orleans Saints are going to be without Drew Brees, and they have announced their starter for the game. It isn't Jameis Winston. It's Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill, by the way, has fewer than 20 completed passes in his time.
Why the heck is it?
I know. What?
It doesn't make much sense to me
Okay,
at all.
Sam, you explain that. Sam, you start this one and explain that.
He's
McGinnis. Let McGinnis. He's the rocket surgeon.
He is not a QB. He is a pretender. He shouldn't. I bet. Watch this. He'll throw picks, or they won't be able to get anything going. Or they'll have one of three options. Either he'll play terribly, and they'll end up putting Jameis Winston in the second half, or they'll play their offense completely differently, where it's mostly runs and options, and then just a few throws, and he could actually work well in that system. So if that's what they're going with, okay, I trust it a little bit more. But fun fact of the day, Taysom Hill is not a QB. That's a dream somewhere that someone had. It's not a thing. Just why the frick did they pick Taysom Hill?
I got to agree with Sam Teets. If this goes off, this may be the dumbest move of the week in the NFL. I mean, it may be, as we start labeling things for fun, this may be the single dumbest personnel move of the week. To not go with Jameis Winston in a game like this. I can't. Sam, why are they doing this? McGinnis?
I have no – maybe they understand that Jameis Winston is a turnover machine, but I'm not exactly sure why you would put Taysom Hill, unless, again, if it's like what they're doing with Cam Newton a little bit, where they're running and then only throwing occasionally, I could see that working out much better for them.
But this is a passing offense, right? Look around Drew Brees. You want your best arm in this game, right, Teeth?
Well, Brees can't play because he's got cracked ribs and a punctured lung, so he's going to have to wait a little while before he can do anything. But Taysom Hill, for the record, Taysom Hill has all 18 pass attempts in his career, only 10 completions. The reason he might be playing is he signed a 2-year, $21 million deal in the offseason, actually making more money than Jameis Winston is right now. And Sean Payton, the head coach for New Orleans, seems infatuated with Taysom Hill, so they're starting him. I know neither of you two have picked the games yet. You're both laughing over this first. I'm going to say I'm taking the Atlanta Falcons in this game before anyone makes a pick. I'm taking Atlanta just because Taysom Hill's the star for New Orleans, I have to pick against them on this one. The Saints are definitely the better team, but I'm taking Atlanta. This is my upset of the week. I'm taking the Falcons. So, Steve, who are you taking in this game?
Well, I'm going to go with you. I'm going to take the Falcons. I mean, they were 0-5 under their old coach, and now they've won 3 games under their new coaching regime. They're definitely moving in the right direction. And to me, New Orleans right now, this week's going to look like the Titanic, I think. So I'm definitely going with Atlanta in this game.
All right, McGinnis, you want to make it a clean sweep?
Yeah, well, we're going to make this a clean sweep. Now, I will say this. If they are able to figure out how to use their running pieces correctly, because their offensive line is good. If they're able to figure out how to use their running pieces correctly, they could potentially replicate something for just a few weeks that looks kind of like the Patriots offense and be at least somewhat successful. But the Falcons are a decent team that in the sense of could upset. So I think I'll have to pick them here. Don't be too shocked if Jameis Winston comes in the second half if they try and just pass the ball a bunch, though.
Well, I was going to say, I think the best bet in the NFL right now is the over-under on Jameis Winston coming into the game. You know, how fast does he get in?
Yeah, I would agree with you. Jameis Winston being there. I have said they have no sub packages playing in the game, so they're not playing to even win 2 or 3 plays. They have no playing unless they have to absolutely pull Taysom Hill. So I don't understand the game plan. Don't know what they're doing, but we'll see. I think we can all be wrong or we can all be geniuses this week. We'll find out. Well, moving on to another game that's a little less exciting.
Can't.
Yeah, Taysom Hill pushes the ball a lot when he throws it. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. But next game, Tua Tagovailoa, young quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, who are getting hot right about now. They're starting to look like they could threaten the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. No. The Miami Dolphins are 6-3, and they're facing off against one of the worst teams in the NFL, the 3-6 Denver Broncos. This is a fairly open and shut book for me. But Steve, who do you think is going to win this game, the Miami Dolphins or the Denver Broncos?
I think Tua is really maturing quickly as a quarterback. And you know, he's got Fitzpatrick or Fitzmagic back there guiding him and coaching him and telling him what to do. Dolphins have really shown growth. I'm not saying they've shown flashes of brilliance, but they've shown steady play and steady growth. And a lot of these younger teams haven't done it. So I definitely would go with Miami in this game. I think it's an open and shut case there. What's amazing to me is, and one of you guys can address this, it seems to me these young quarterbacks are coming out much more prepared earlier than we've seen, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. Like Tannehill's just now coming into his own right now. And Tannehill's been around, 5, 6 years, 7 years? And he's just really starting to come into a star caliber NFL quarterback. These guys, Kyler Murray, him, Darnell, and the quarterback in Cleveland, I can't think of his name right now.
Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
Mayfield.
These guys are coming in, and they're making major impact right off the get-go. So I like Tua a lot. I think he's running their offense well. I was pissed off when they made the change from Fitzpatrick to him. I didn't think it was a good move, but they proved me wrong, and he's come in and run that offense very well. So I like Miami.
All right, McGinnis, what do you think? Miami or Denver?
I think I'm going to have to go Miami also. I mean, if you don't have a reason not to pick a team, don't. For our last team, right, they don't have Drew Brees. Had they had Drew Brees, I may have picked the Saints, right? But there's usually a reason, at least even if it's a small one. Okay. I was thinking about it, and there might be a small reason, but I'm going to have to take the Dolphins here. Tua's doing well. Steve is right. Younger quarterbacks are coming in much better, much quicker, which is going to make it harder for college quarterbacks now because you're going to actually have a better talent pool to get from for all these teams now. So that's going to be an interesting challenge for college quarterbacks coming in. But yeah, I don't see any reason that's significant enough to not take the Dolphins here.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a chance that Drew Lock, the starting QB for Denver, doesn't even play. He's been dealing with a muscle strain this past week. There's a chance he misses the game, and they'll have Brett Rippon, his backup, under center. And it doesn't really matter either way to me because Drew Lock threw 4 interceptions last week, so he might as well just be a backup. They are terrible offensively. So I'm taking the Dolphins there as well, make it a clean sweep. And now the matchup of the weekend, the New York Jets versus the Los Angeles Chargers. This is a game that won't impact the playoffs whatsoever, but we can see we see some young quarterbacks in here. I actually think we're not going to see Sam Darnold. I'm pretty sure we're going to see Joe Flacco again for the 0-9 New York Jets. On the other hand, we get Justin Herbert and the Los Angeles Chargers. Herbert only has 1 win in the NFL. The Chargers only have 2 wins this year. Steve Risley, who are you taking?
I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think I read a stat where quarterbacking in the last couple of years, I think that the Jets are like 6 or 7-12 with their regular quarterback, and any other quarterback who's played, they have not won a game. So Flacco coming in, probably going to be
you're right.
They have not won a game with anybody other than Darnell quarterbacking for them. So since he's been their quarterback, so him being out, the Jets are an enigma. I mean, I don't know how a team in New York can consistently be as bad as they are. They're not even. I'm not sure they'd be contending for the playoffs in the college football ranks right now. I'm not sure they could beat Indiana football team.
Well, I think part of that you can pin on Adam Gase, their head coach, who for some reason hasn't been fired yet. But McGinnis, would you like to add here? Would you like to take the Chargers as well, or are you going to take the New York Jets to get their first win?
So here's the thing. There's a reason they're leaving Adam Gase in. They want to lose games. They're trying. Okay, this shouldn't be a secret at this point. There's a reason he's still there. Everybody knows he's an nincompoop. That's the whole point. Okay, so I'm gonna have to take the Chargers. Justin Herbert is really good, and I think he'll do well against the Jets defense. The Jets, Joe Flacco might do all right. It's not like he's a completely incompetent quarterback by any means, but. Yeah, I'm going to have to take Justin Herbert here in the Chargers. They're a better team overall.
Yeah, you're right. Flacco's not a totally incompetent quarterback. He's a very well-paid, totally incompetent quarterback. He's one of the first ones to sign. Remember, he signed that big-ass contract right when they won the Super Bowl, and he hadn't lived up to that money since he wrote his name on that piece of paper.
No, that was the best year of his career by far. He's not lived up to it whatsoever.
No.
The only thing I would have to say in the favor of the Jets this game is the Chargers find a way to lose close games for whatever reason. I think Mike puts a lot on coaching, so they just haven't been winning those close games. I don't think this was going to be a close one. I think the Chargers should blow the Jets out of the water here. The Jets will go losing. I think Justin Herbert's a pretty good quarterback. I like him better than Darnold right now. I think that he'll get his second win as an NFL team. The Chargers win this one fairly easily. Another interesting game this week, though. The Kansas City Chiefs versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So the last time these two teams met up was the only time the Chiefs have lost this year. The Raiders won 40-32. Patrick Mahomes did not look great. The Raiders have beat a couple of good teams this year, including the New Orleans Saints and Chiefs. So it's a rematch. Who's going to win? The Chiefs or Raiders, Steve Risley?
I'm gonna go with an upset special on this one because I agree with what Sam said about you got to pick a couple upsets here, and I don't know that it's really an upset, but I'm going to go with the Raiders. I think that that Holmes he's had that sophomore inconsistency. He's not played bad. He's still a league leader in this league, but I think after the year he had last year, taking him to the Super Bowl, our expectations rise. He probably is not performing at the level he was, but teams get acclimated to him too. They set defenses up. I mean, last year he was fairly much a hot shot, unknown quantity. So he's facing that bullseye got really big on his back too. But I think the Raiders just have got some I don't give a darn Raider mentality. And Gruden's the guy to develop that for this football team. It's turning into be a really good match between Gruden and the Raiders. And I think in a few years, Raiders may be the team to beat in the AFC in a few years. But I'm going to go with the Raiders on this game in an upset special.
All right, so Steve's going for an upset again. McGinnis, Raiders or Chiefs? Which one are you taking?
I think the Chiefs bounce back here. I think this game is a good game either way. It's another one of the better games of the week. So if you need something to watch, turn this one on. It could go either way. The Raiders have really done well with upsetting teams over the past few weeks, but I do believe in the ability of Patrick Mahomes and just the Chiefs as a whole to bounce back from their previous loss, which was close, by the way. They almost came back at the end. It wasn't a big margin. So that's Patrick Mahomes threw his only interception of the whole year during the last Raiders game. He might again, but I do believe in the ability to bounce back here for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs in this one as well. I don't think you lose to the same opponent twice in 1 year. And if they did, I mean, all the props to John Gruden and the Raiders. John Gruden has done a really good job establishing the culture there. After signing was a 10-year, $100 million contract, you have to win the Super Bowl with the team if you're going to sign a deal that big. So to me, John Gruden's done a good job so far establishing a career in Las Vegas. I still just think the Chiefs are too talented to lose twice in a row to the Raiders. And really,
okay, Sam.
He froze.
He froze.
We'll pick this up here, but yeah. So we have Raiders Chiefs, but for the Chiefs with Mahomes.
On paper, you got to go with the Chiefs.
Well, yeah. For me, it's here's the real question: if Mahomes throws another pick, is that going to be the determiner? Because he's only thrown a pick versus the Raiders, and that's the only pick he's thrown all year. So it'd be interesting to see if his kryptonite ends up being the Raiders.
I think that I don't think it's that. I mean, I think Mahomes can throw a pick or two. I mean, only throwing one pick, that's almost Superman-like in his effort. And he is as close to Superman as a quarterback as the NFL has at this moment. What I think the Raiders defense is kind of bruising. They're kind of relentless. They come at you. They pressure the offense good. Now, the Chiefs they protect Mahomes as good as anybody, and Mahomes can definitely scramble. But I think you throw him off balance a little bit, and it's going to even things out a lot. And then it's just going to be an attrition game, a game of turnovers and things of that nature. So we'll have to see. But I like, I'm just going to go with the Raiders. Just got this. And what is the Raiders' record? I got to pull it. What is the Raiders' record? Do you know?
I think I have it.
Hang on, I got it here too. Yeah.
The Raiders are 6-3.
So they're in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, they'll probably be a playoff team anyway. They've beaten the teams they need to at least prove themselves a real team in a sense.
Right.
But yeah, I think we've covered that all pretty much to this point. But we've got next up the Monday night game, which is the Rams and the Bucks.
Great game. I think this is the game of the week.
It's going to be interesting because I think the Rams are kind of somewhat shadowed, at least for me, under the Seattle Seahawks and Cardinals, which have turned into that division's two teams. But they kind of miss the fact that the Rams are pretty much the same record as both those teams.
Right. Yeah, but the Rams are pretty well fighting for their playoff lives right now. I mean, this is a team that maybe should have won a Super Bowl in the last couple of years with the amount of talent they've had on that football team and the breaks that they've gotten. But they have not been able to get it done for one reason or another. I mean, I think Goff is adequate, but I don't think he's much more than adequate.
Yeah.
He doesn't kill the Raiders or the Rams, but I don't think he leads them like you would want, like an Aaron Rodgers leads the Packers.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing for me. Like serviceable or decent or average is what would come to mind with Jared Goff. Like he's
Mhm.
a quarterback that is a legitimate quarterback, but nothing more.
Right. He's a quarterback to me that if I was the Rams, I'd always be looking for another quarterback, somebody better. You know, I wouldn't bank my future on Jared Goff, but I'm not going to dump him just for the sake of bringing somebody else in because he serves his purpose more than that. But now you've got Tom Brady and you've got Bruce Arians coming in. I don't know how depleted the Rams defense is right now. I know they've got some injuries they're dealing with. You know, you go from there. I would have to go in this game with the Bucs. I just think this is Brady's moment. These are the games that he wins. He rises to the occasion, even at 42, 43, whatever he's at this point in time. He's got a good team around him.
Absolutely.
Probably a little bit better team than the Rams right now. And I think the Rams are going to be playing a little bit more out of desperation than are the Bucs. So I would definitely go with the Bucs on this Monday night game. It's one I'm definitely going to be watching.
Yeah, I think the Bucs take this one also. They've got one of, if not the best receiving core in all the NFL, and then adding Tom Brady, who's already experienced to that, really you can put the bullet in the gun at that point. So, yeah, the Bucs for me are the winners here. The Rams could be an upset team, but this is just not one that I'm going to pick. You can't. Again, it also goes in reverse. You can't pick every upset that you think could be an upset. Also.
Agreed, and we've seen Brady is upsettable. I mean, you can't upset
possible.
Brady, but it is possible. But boy, 2 or 3 times in one season, I don't see it happening.
Well, and especially if you look at the upsets that happen, they're usually earlier in the year, and we've already seen that. So most of those, they might lose another game or two, but most of the upsets are probably over with.
Yeah, definitely. Does that cover it?
Yeah, I think so. Sam Teets fell off a cliff there.
Yeah, his internet service went